Hi, everybody. Mike Cadgy from Procurement Foundry. We're in the afternoon industry sector breakout session. Hopefully, you've gotten a bio break or gotten some food during our 15-minute breakup sessions. Our breakout session breaks in between the sessions. I'm sorry, the caffeine from my coffee this morning is wearing off, and we're really excited about this. We've got some of the biggest brands talking in all different sections. This panel discussion, I think, was the first discussion panel we actually built, and was kind of the way we started this entire conference off. Welcome to the panel, breakout room number 2, panel Wellness, Pharma, and Healthcare. We've got some amazing guests on this panel, as well as Wendy, who's going to be who agreed to be our moderator for this. So I'm going to jump off, as all of you know, because this is probably your 5th or 6th session on the day. I'll be in the background monitoring Q&A. We've got chat available as well. So I'm really happy to jump off of this and let you all talk. And I'm going to be monitoring our attendees just to make sure that we don't have unwanted patrons in the room. All right, thank you very much. Wendy, the floor is all yours. Tell us a little bit about yourself and then all the panelists.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us. Sorry, my dog has just decided to start barking right at the beginning of this, but oh well. My name is Wendy Naughton. I'm a global client leader for WPP, and as such, I oversee our offering in the 4 pillars that we have: communications, commerce, technology, and experience for a client in the health sector. I'm delighted to be with you today and to introduce you to Danny, Paul, and Sabrina, who are all 3 in the procurement leadership roles within their organizations in the health and pharma and sector. So I'm going to take just a minute to let them introduce themselves. So we're going to start with who they are, who they work with, who they work for, how long they've been in the role. And then I've asked them, just to be really sort of US campaign centric, I've asked them to tell us what their biggest challenge is in one word to get us started. So why don't we start with Daniel?
Great. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is Danny Bloom. I look after the global sourcing and procurement function at WW International, or formerly known as Weight Watchers. I have been at the company for about 3.5 years, and oversee sort of all indirect spend, so everything from marketing to technology and everything else in between. And my sort of one-word challenge that I would say is agility. That's really been what's been the toughest thing to deal with over the past 6 to 9 months.
I'm sure you're not the only one who would say that. How about Paul?
All right. Hello, everyone. Paul Jarvi here. I work at UnitedHealth Group. I am the director of enterprise sourcing and procurement in the advertising marketing commodity and marketing print commodity. I've been in the role here at UHG for 8 years. And the biggest challenge that one word to describe, I'll say complexity, is my biggest challenge.
Great, thank you. Nice to see you. And then Sabrina, do you want to take a minute to introduce yourself too, please?
Sure. I'm Sabrina Traskos, and I oversee the global procurement activities as they pertain to AstraZeneca's marketing spend. So a lot of different marketing categories, including advertising, PR, media, medical communications, just a whole litany of stuff. I joined AstraZeneca 7 months ago, so not that long ago. I'm still learning a lot about the company and the industry, and not to sound particularly antisocial, but I'm going to go with my biggest problem as people. I think you can design great systems and processes, but once you get people involved, all the good stuff goes out the window.
That can be so true. So thank you. Nice to have you all here. I'm going to pick up, Paul, your challenge, your one-word challenge around complexity. and just kind of ask you some questions about that. So
Okay.
how does your organization ongoing handle requests from marketing teams across your organization, considering how incredibly complex it must be?
Sure. So we are a centralized function, and we have an intake process. So we do get requests, procurement requests for everything that a procurement team might need to do, or questions about how to handle situations. And that's kind of how we manage the intake of our marketing people's questions. We handle a lot of email as well as that, but formally we have an intake process, and those are usually around, I need to add an agency, I need to do a contract, etc. We do get lots of requests for adding agencies from marketers, because we are so complex across so many different lines of business and have marketing teams within each of those businesses. So, and multiple CMOs across the company. So we've tried to build what we say is an enterprise roster, or a framework of agencies. We have a tool in our shared intranet called MARC, which is the Marketing Agency Resource Center. So we try as best we can to socialize and to let people know that there is the MARC tool that they can go in. They can go in and look at the rosters of agencies under the various subcategories within marketing, and read a one-sheet page on each of those agencies, their key competencies, and familiarize themselves with the agencies in that way. Oftentimes that leads to either further discussion with us as the procurement team, who else has used them, or what might else I need to know about, the last project they worked on for the company. But we also have within that tool a blog function, so people can start a conversation. Other marketers can start a conversation with maybe somebody who has rated the agency, or had a point of view about the agency, or has made a comment. So it's not completely functional at this point, and we're still trying to socialize it. We've just been building it over the last year and a half or so. And so we're trying to do that to help streamline and cut down on some of the questions for asking to add new agencies, because oftentimes they're innocently saying, I just need to add an agency. This is the one I'm familiar with. And they don't know that there are, already existing agencies that we can use. So that's how we deal with it. And of course, the complexity of people, as Sabrina was saying, is always both a challenge, but it's also one of the pleasures in being able to get to know and get to build relationship with marketing people across the agency, or across the company.
That sounds like a great process. Do you have a centralized sourcing team, or are there multiple teams within each of the operating units?
Yes, Wendy, we do. So our team is centralized within within UnitedHealth Group. So UnitedHealth Group is made up of UnitedHealth Care and Optum, and within our procurement team, me and the team that supports ad marketing are the centralized function. So oftentimes we will be able to help connect dots, because sometimes one part of the company is doing something that somebody else is already working on. And this just happened yesterday, where somebody wanted to, they were working on, looking into building a new platform or something. And another team had already been starting to ask questions, and we are starting to look at agencies, or starting to build a roster of who might be on the RFP for that project. So we was able to connect those two groups and have a really complete conversation, and now those two groups are able to collaborate better. So the centralized function of our procurement team is really a very useful structure.
Thank you for that. It sounds like you're tackling complexity head on.
Trying.
So let me go to Sabrina, because I loved your one word response being people. So I know that you've recently joined AstraZeneca, and that you came from working at a holding company to now being a holding company client. So obviously one of our clients. How has your experience changed your perspective of partners and agencies? I'm sure people come into this equation too, but how has that affected, overall also the selection process for you, that you have both sides sort of the table to pull from?
Sure. It's definitely good having both experiences to pull from. I do think that my time working at a holding company gave me a little bit more insight into the financials, the profit margins, and all the pressure that the agencies are under on a regular basis. In trying to weigh those factors against what is the marketers need, the timeframes that the marketers need it in, it's definitely a balancing act. But I think I have tried to change up the process, the selection process that we use to find new agencies of records quite a bit, so that we can minimize the amount of time that it takes of the agencies, and also make sure that we're getting really focused to have the agencies answer exactly what it is that the marketers are looking for. So if the priority is the creative capacity of the team, is the focus project management, is it a multi-channel or an omni-channel campaign, really focusing in and also dedicating a certain amount of time to making sure that there is that chemistry fit. So I think I used to be, before I got to the holding company, I was pretty dubious about this whole chemistry thing, and people would say it's like dating when the agencies and the marketers come together. And I just thought, no, it's not like dating. I think it's like interviewing, actually. And we actually now have a part of our strategic sourcing process, which is essentially like an hour-long interview. And the marketers ask a lot of questions of the agencies, just like they would in an interview, to figure out what is the common culture, what are the values between the two teams, copacetic, like do they go together? And then another thing that I really thought was important, and I've tried to build into our process, is the essence of a partnership agreement between the agency and the marketers and AstraZeneca in general, so that we know what's acceptable. We know that we do expect challenges to the ideas that are put out there, and can have a healthy discussion without there being animosity or problems in the relationship overall. I think somebody else mentioned this today, but I also did learn never release an RFP over a holiday weekend, or the holidays in general.
Well, having been on the agency side as long as I have to say I've gotten an incredible amount of RFPs, strangely enough, over Christmas. So I'm glad to hear that that's out there to maybe not do that so often anymore. So I know you mentioned when you did the introduction that you actually came from outside of healthcare, right? Because you would have come from a holding company. What has it been like to leap into pharma? And would there be any recommendations that you would make to someone coming into healthcare?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that you definitely, it can be a little humbling in the beginning because you can't pronounce any of the product names. It took me a month and a half to be able to say half of the drugs that we work on, but now they just kind of roll off the tongue, which is also a little bit scary in a different way. But there is definitely a learning curve, but I think it's fun to learn new areas and new aspects, and that's part of the benefit of procurement. You get to learn about different things in each of your jobs, and that's one of the attractions of procurement in general for me. But learning about the medical, the legal, the regulatory approvals that the campaigns need to go through, that the assets need to go through, learning about the multiple indications and some of the requirements about what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say to consumers or to healthcare providers. And just knowing that it's just New Zealand and the United States where you can market to consumers directly. The rest of the world only limits it. You can only do it in an unbranded or an HCP targeted campaign. So that's all been new and interesting. But I will say a lot of the adjustment is kind of just adjusting to another big company. You're still dealing with conversations about net 75 payment terms, which every procurement person loves having that conversation. And
I'm sure.
yeah, and you still have to get used to, you can speed up your procurement process to accommodate somebody's timeline in terms of when they want to start working, but then your contracting process still takes a whole long time. So, those things are the same wherever you go.
Thank you. Danny, I'm going to pick up your idea or your challenge around agility and address it to, the big change that we've all been going through in actually managing agency and client relationships among the pandemic. Can you give us some thoughts on this? What have you started to do differently? What would you say has been accelerated or what has decelerated in the way that you are working with agencies?
Sure. So it's been an interesting time for us at WW as we ran a North American review and ended up with multiple agency partners during the pandemic completely remotely, and did onboard new agencies throughout that. And so, we've had since the beginning, right? Since we started the process, we've had to come up with ways to run through like the interviews that Sabrina was talking about earlier to help us shortlist. But then, how do we start to build the relationships has really was a daunting challenge that was in front of us. And, WW, we are primarily all of corporate sits in New York. We're very sort of FaceTime centric. It was actually very important to us for our agency partners to be in New York because we expected to spend a lot of time face to face with them to make sure that we were collaborating well and also just building the relationships that way we could get through the um, challenging early pieces of a new agency client relationship. And so what we've done to do that is we've really tried to build out mechanisms that allow us to communicate more informally, right? And so we've started to roll out and leverage Slack, for example, as a tool. So right now we're able to connect with our agency partners as well as with our market procurement via Slack. And by doing that, we can start to get things done quicker, more efficiently, have offline chats. Right now, everything is very formal. There's not a lot of hallway conversation. There's not a lot of, I don't know about the other folks on the panel, but with a lot of our agencies before this, they would come in because they were presenting X, Y, and Z, but then we would catch up for a half an hour after. Those opportunities aren't there, right? Everything is kind of locked inside a meeting invite now. And connecting through Slack or through other means has really made us be able to kind of get over that. And it's also allowed us to actually build and forge these relationships faster than I think we would have been able to face to face. So this was sort of like an unintended consequence, but something that has really been working for us.
Great, thank you. So at all of you, I wonder what good habits you feel you've developed through this year. I mean, supposedly we're going to come out of COVID 2021, 2022. I know AstraZeneca has a COVID-19 vaccine in play. But, even so, I'm sure there's some habits that we've developed throughout this year that we're going to keep and want to hold on to moving forward. So just thinking about that from a client and agency's perspective, Danny, do you have any thoughts around that? What habits you think are going to stay?
Well, I think there are, to me, and I think we had chatted about this before, as we have blurred the lines even further between work and home. And so at my organization, and I think just generally, people are starting to feel like I need to find a way for, whatever you want to call it, time for yourself or self-care, whether it's, switching your weekly team meeting to a walking meeting or, deciding you're gonna do yoga during your commute time, or you know, tracking water, right, and making sure you're getting enough water throughout the day, or focusing on sleep, or whatever it might be. I really feel like that's something that I hope is going to kind of stick around after this, because while it was easier for us to notice it because we're home and you're like sitting in one place and there's not a lot of change, I think that there really wasn't a lot of, you know, time, especially in the marketing procurement space, for that before. And this is forcing people to really, you know, carve that out. So even if we get back to the office, right, and you're back there, it's like making sure that you don't, you know, forget to eat lunch, or work through back-to-back meetings where you're 6 minutes late to each meeting, starting at your first meeting of the day, and really kind of taking away to take that time. And I just really feel like it makes us, um, you know, more effective. And to tie it back to the agency client relationship, is that you can do things to, you know, do some of those things together, and to help
Mhm.
kind of like build camaraderie, and make sure that you do it. So like I said, for example, a walking meeting or whatever it might be. But that's what I hope kind of sticks around from these COVID times.
So are you doing walking meetings with your agencies? Are you like doing pitches where you're walking together,
We're
or?
not no pitches yet, but definitely
That would be cool.
conversation, especially when there are things that are less pleasant to talk about, right? Sometimes if you're out there
Sure.
and people are moving and getting a little bit of exercise, it helps you get to the perspective moment of the meeting faster, than if you were
And it
just
excuses
sitting.
the red face and sweating probably too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You can blame your huffing and puffing that like you're walking up a hill. Uh,
Sure.
yeah.
Thank you. At Paul, so what good habits would you say you've developed that you'd want to hold on to?
I'd say that one of the things I've noticed is that when we're doing Zoom meetings or our Teams meetings, we're oftentimes starting on time. Whereas, you know, like Danny just said, sometimes when you're in the office and your one meeting goes a little longer and then you have to get to the other meeting, then the next meeting doesn't start right away. So I feel like we're keeping track of our schedules a little bit better, starting on time. And at UHG, we try to abide by a finish with 5. So we try to give ourselves a little bit of time so that we can, you know, get ourselves organized for the next meeting. And I feel like that habit, because we're more disciplined and have more control by working, you know, just in our virtual space, we're able to do that better. And then I would say that, you know, because we're so large, we have lots of people all over the country. We do a lot of virtual check-ins, and the virtual check-ins, we're more conscious of it, I think, now because we're all virtual. And so
Mhm.
somebody in Seattle versus somebody in Minneapolis versus somebody in Pennsylvania, it's all equalized now. So I like that we're doing more check-ins with the people that were before, you know, offsite or in a different location than where we are at corporate.
Yeah, I'll say the thing that I don't miss is trying to book a meeting room and then having somebody be in the meeting room. So that's one of the things, at least from a good habit perspective, that I love about doing Zoom calls, is that I don't have to worry about somebody being, you know, in my meeting room. So,
Yeah, good point.
at Sabrina,
You
what?
know, I think one of the things that that is kind of embedded in all of us now is just incorporating agility into how we think about things, how we go about meetings, how we get to achieve our objective. Obviously, with COVID times, we've had to figure out, how do we do this virtually? How do we do the check-in so that there's still a sense of camaraderie and collaboration amongst the team? But I think what I've seen both from agency partners and from the team at AstraZeneca is just all this inspired thinking about how do we do this in the most sensible way? How do we do this in a time efficient way that we are achieving our objectives, but doing it in an agile way, rather than waiting until everybody gets together in a big conference room where we have to kick 6 people out. We order sandwiches that I never particularly like, and then sit there and go through a pitch, which doesn't necessarily give us the information that we want. But so just thinking about this, I think it's like the inspiration of agility is imprinting in all of our thought patterns, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are some good things that are coming out of this, I think, for all of us as far as behavior is concerned. So another thought that I had was I'm reading a book called Friction by Roger Dooley, and he defines, and I think it's a really interesting approach, he defines friction as being the unnecessary expenditure of time, effort, or money in performing a task. And that feels like something that is very much sort of in the crosswires of what procurement as an organization really helps deliver across all of your companies. And it will actually lead to a substantial boost in the company's revenue if you can actually eliminate or reduce friction, right? So as we think about that, I just wonder, you know, what you look at to say is the thing that you want to work on to remove friction from between your teams. You know, what specifically would you think about? Would it be chemistry? Would it be setting up the rules of how you work together? You know, how do you do that? Is there anybody who wants to take that one on first?
Before you answer, Paul, can you just tilt up a little bit? Oh, I'm sorry, tilt down a little bit. I apologize. Thank you.
So maybe Paul, since you just
Sure.
tilted your camera.
So now you can see me. Yep. Sure. So measuring relationships, I think we do that at several different levels. Some of the key and largest relationships, what we've tried to do is simplify how we survey the people that work with those suppliers. So we're not sending them a long, extensive survey and trying to get verbatim comments, you know, all of which, you know, people are busy and they don't always respond to, so we have to remind them, and trying to collect all of that information. So we've streamlined how to do that in a much easier way, and we get a much higher response rate. We also have lessened the frequency, so we're not surveying and doing a business review or relationship review as frequently as we tried to do it before. And of course, we have so many agencies that we just never always got to the ones that we wanted to anyway. So we're trying to lessen the frequency and get to more of our agency relationships. We've also done something different this year. And rather than a business review, we're starting to call a review an opportunity review. So we're asking some of our key suppliers to come in with some of their thinking about current projects that they have or that they've been working on recently, and give us some thoughts and strike up the conversation about maybe what things could be done differently with those programs, what new technologies or what new approaches or new ways of thinking about the project that might be more efficient or might be more engaging for the recipient, and getting a deck and understanding all of the business relationship standards that you might review as a deck, but having the time that you're face to face, really focus more on how do we drive innovation and how do we open up a conversation for strengthening the partnership in driving some of those key areas of innovation. I think what that also does is it allows our incumbent agencies who have invested their time and their talents with us to continue to have a voice in how we could make it even better. So sometimes that is, you know, we're not getting those thoughts unless we go to an RFP, or we're not getting those thoughts unless we specifically say, hey, we want you to do these new things for our program. It just gives them an opportunity, and all of us an opportunity to drive that conversation together during the opportunity review.
That totally makes sense. I think that's a really interesting approach because it allows for the agencies also to really come in with really innovative ideas, and it gives them a platform to do that in a setting where you're also having conversations around what could be going better on both sides. So that's a really interesting point. Sabrina, how about you? Are you using measuring relationships at all to help remove friction, or how are you going about your measuring of relationships, and what's your approach?
I think it starts with clear, consistent communication. Just about common goals, common objectives, expectations, and defining together what success looks like. And then we've got a process where there's opportunities for our partners to work with the marketers so that there's continual feedback, not just on what's worked, what are opportunities to grow, and again, carving out innovation, as you guys just mentioned. But there's also dedicated time where we can go back and remind ourselves, what is success? How are we tracking towards that goal of success? And what do we need to do to get back on track, or should we redefine what success looks like? So I think QBRs. I might take Paul's more innovative, exciting, better marketing branded name for what we do, but I think QBRs, half yearly reviews, where we still go over the not so interesting procurement stuff that makes the marketers glaze over. They're important components of the relationship, but I think just having that regular opportunity to have the dialogue and to talk about how things are going just enhances the relationship overall.
Of course, and it goes back to addressing your biggest concern, which is people, right? If you can get people to talk to each other more and more, it helps this whole outcome. Absolutely.
And it's got to be candid.
Indeed, it does have to be candid, which, sometimes is difficult because, I know at least from the agency side that, there is always that, you want to figure out who said what, and we have to really sort of manage that to make sure that we get the right positive feedback from clients, as well as the harder feedback, so that we can keep the relationship in a good place. So Danny, how about you? Are you all measuring your relationships? I'm sure you are. And what are you doing, and what do you find that's working, what's not working?
So, I think a lot of good sort of points already put out here, and I agree with you, Sabrina, that Paul, you're marketing a QBR in a much better way, and I think I may go that route. Also just to quickly focus on the sort of the innovation or the opportunity for innovation. That's actually something that we built into our most recent scopes with our new agencies. So they're actually scoped to do that as part of it, and it can feel, when you're explaining that to finance, etc., like it's a superfluous, like sort of add-on that we don't need, and we can get it when we do. But I think, to your point, you really want to make it sort of core, so that way you continue to extract like the most value out. And I think it drives back again to the relationships, right? You hire all these amazing people, you spend all this time going through for their ingenuity and their great minds and their thoughts and their passion for your business. And a lot of times, those resources can then get stuck in just trying to put out the day to day, right? And constant changes and things that you're throwing at them. With that being said, um, the one thing that I found that can really be helpful is, and one of our we have some representatives from one of our agencies on this, I can see in the attendee list. So I want to make it really clear that it's always the agency's fault. But with that being said,
Of course.
I think it is, when you do an opportunity review, as I now call them, really making sure that there's a good mechanism to get really candid feedback from your agencies about yourselves as clients. Because, all joking aside, I think constantly, whenever something's not working for us as a client, hopefully we're pushing back on our agencies to make it work and to find a solve and to solution for it. But you know, there's a lot that both parties can, I think, do to continue to kind of elevate their relationship, and giving, you know, creating an environment where you can get that candid feedback, and turn it into something productive, right? Not just a complaint, but a real sort of opportunity. You know, really, I think helps to kind of reduce the friction, and, you know, cut cycle times down and just make things be, you know, significantly more efficient, and all the while really improving the relationship.
Thank you. So we have a good question from Dave Stowe that I just wanted to ask the panelists about. And I'll, you know, see who wants to volunteer first to go. Otherwise, I'll as usual, I'll pick you out to answer the question. But given the size of each of your companies, you know, and they're all really big, right? And you have a lot of suppliers. What are some of the ways that you develop relationships? I think that's a really interesting question because, you know, the relationships between agencies and manufacturers have gotten shorter and shorter. I think we're down to the average relationship is like 2.5 years. And I think about 7 years ago, it was somewhere around, you know, 6 years. So what are you doing to actually help develop relationships? Because we all know that if you have a relationship, you're going to have a better partnership because you have a team that's really invested in your brand and extending that. So what are you doing to develop your relationships?
I mean, I can start. So, you know, I think all of the people on my team have pretty regular conversations with our major suppliers. So obviously it's going to be difficult when you've got a pretty small team to talk to all 6,000 suppliers that may show up in your database, but there are ones that are on our preferred agency rosters, and we talk to them regularly. We talk to them, you know, when there's new business coming. We talk to them when issues pop up. We talk to them about particular SOWs when we have a question. And, you know, it's not just a conversation like, hi, can you explain this deliverable to me? You know, you do have to make an effort and have the, like a virtual check-in, you know, see how things are doing, see what's going on in their life. I do think it's important to take a moment and try to think about, you know, what is that person dealing with while we're in this COVID situation? Because I have to say, I am so impressed with a lot of the agencies that we work with, like yours, Wendy. Everybody is always responsive. Everybody is always kind and polite in our conversations. And for all I know, they could have 5 kids in the background all screaming for dinner. But it's so everybody's balancing stuff. Everybody's figuring out, how do I pick my kid up from practice while still getting on a pitch that's scheduled for the same time. I do think it's important just to remember that you know, your agency partners are human, and there's give and take in the relationships.
Thank you. Yes, so true. I completely agree with you. I do think that one of the things that I completely latch on to what you said is the kindness factor, right? I think that we've all become much kinder towards each other. I think the deliverables are still obviously expected, but you know, that whole idea of work-life balance, which never worked because, you know, who could actually do work-life balance? It's really about work-life integration, right? And we're sort of becoming more engaged in that sense because you just naturally have to develop a relationship. Paul or Danny, do you have any thoughts on?
Yep, I'll just probably echo what Sabrina was saying. I think the relationship piece is a conscious effort. You have to make a conscious effort to pick up the phone once in a while, to do a check-in. There's lots of opportunities to have relationship conversations because it could be about an invoicing issue, it could be about an SOW, new business coming up. I have some people thinking about this type of a project. Does this seem like a good fit? Would you be, you know, interested? However those conversations might go, they can often be done via email. But I think sometimes the fun about our job and getting to speak with so many of our really smart, talented agencies is that we can have these types of conversations and continue to really be excited, be happy when we hear their voice and have a reason to talk with them. It's not always just about the business aspect. It's about people working together. And I think that really makes the working more fun and more productive.
Yeah, thank you. absolutely. Danny, did you want to add anything?
No, I think it just echo, what's been said, and yeah, get on a call, get on a Zoom. Maybe not for everything, but don't sort of walk away and put your key suppliers or your key agencies to the bottom of the pile if they're not pitching new business at that time, right? And make sure you just kind of, keep it up. I think it just improves everything all around. And like you said, Paul, it's really part of the fun of the job.
Amen. It certainly is. So we're almost out of time, but I do want to play my little one-word answer time game again and just ask each of you to give me, and if you can make it, tell us what the one key thing is that you think is important to have a successful agency-client relationship. Who's first?
I'll jump in. My one word would be trust.
Trust.
And the client. Yes, trust.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll do a hyphenated word. Does that count? Active listening?
Yes. That works. Active listening works. Yep.
On both sides.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yep. Totally agree. Trust, active listening. And Sabrina?
I still can't get it to one word. So I'm going with candid communication. I'm too wordy.
Well, that's okay. I think candid communication is also really, really important because, that's actually the only way that we can actually put the brand in focus, right? Is to make sure that we're really candid, and you're bringing in an agency to give you an outside viewpoint. Anyone can do, as I like to call it, quick and ick, right? You can get the work done really, really fast. But that's not what organizations such as yours want. You want speed, but you also want people who are really going to push back and give you value in the work that they do for you and deliver. So
absolutely. And then I'll say, as procurement people, we want our agencies to be successful. I mean, the last thing that we want to do is additional sourcing projects or have to deal with a performance improvement plan or anything negative. We actually want our stakeholders to say, man, I love this agency. They're so fantastic. Thanks for helping us find them. Like that's what we want. And you do need candid conversations in order to make sure that that the relationships are maintained well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else want to say anything? I think we've got like 2 more minutes. Does anybody have any questions?
You might be the first session that ends on time today, so.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to hear about Danny's background, why he has the subway, if that is what he's missing. What the story is on that.
Just, the things you miss, you never know. You never know until they're gone.
Well, I don't know if the subway would be the thing that I would pull out. Which subway is that? Is that the New York subway?
Yeah, this is, yeah.
There's no mariachi band.
There's
Not in that car.
mass compliance on this train.
Not in that car, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, listen, thanks everyone. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks,
Thank
Wendy.
you for moderating.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely, it was a pleasure.
Thanks, everybody. Just wanted to say thank you to the panel. I wanted to kind of give a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to take a 15-minute break here. We're going to come back for our final session of the day, which is Seth Godin for a close last call keynote. Seth will be speaking for about 45 minutes. And you get to see me check off a bucket list, which is me actually interviewing a multi-bestseller. So I get to take something down off my list of life accomplishments today. So thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Daniel, very much. Thank you very much, Wendy. Amazing content. I got some great nuggets from here. And I love the fact that we've got trust, active listening, and what candid communication, right, Sabrina?
Candid communication, yep.
I've always been candid.
Yep, I can attest to that. So thank you very much for that. And I love that we stuck on relationships for the most part, And thank you all very much, and I appreciate it, and so does the Procurement Foundry. So have a great day, and have a good holiday season if we don't talk to you all.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Everyone enjoy.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye.